Here we go. Mainline Executive Coaching. Welcome. Mainline Executive Coaching. Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. Executive Coaching. Mainline Executive Coaching ACT. Here we are. Here we go. Leaders out there, we're going to talk to you on a very basic, fundamental level. Hopefully, it is helpful to you. Hopefully, it clicks on some switches in your mind about what may be going wrong in terms of things not going as right as you want them to go. I'm here today with my partner, Rich Barron. I'm Maikel Bailey. We're going to be talking about this notion here, and this is a big notion. It is a remarkable notion that we have lost this understanding, this basic fundamental of what creates successful leadership. And it is all about this simple notion. You can't lead others until you have learned how to, number one, manage and motivate yourself, and then be able to lead yourself. If you haven't walked that path, how do you expect others to help you by you being able to teach them how to walk the path and then learn how to walk the path on their own? How does that even happen if you've never walked it yourself? You're the guide, you're the leader. But if you haven't done it, what's going to happen here? So, Rich, let's kick this off. We've talked about this a bit, quite a bit, in fact, about the fact that many leaders come into executive coaching and they're not even prepared.
No, they're not. They're not prepared. They're not only are they not prepared to learn, they already feel they've got the skills. So why should I put out forth any effort? Yeah.
I want to go back to something. This is a remarkable model. And I think I talked about this a long time ago. How do they spot kids that are going to be fantastic or potentially fantastic in the Olympics? And we talked about this very simple model that the U.S. Olympic team uses. And the first step in it is train to educate. Can they just do the basic things that you want them to do? Just see if they can walk the line, if they can run and skip and then jump and hop. Just see if they can do that. Just find out if they can do it. And then you give them some corrections. Can they follow your directions on your corrections? Can they do that? If a kid can't follow instructions and a kid can't take correction when you're training them, then there's no way you can train them. So you have to first train them to learn how to get the education. Then you can actually start training them to train, then training them to compete, then finally training them to win. Those are all things that go up on a scale, step-by-step kind of a ladder. So one of the things that we do when we're working with people, so let's start giving you some assignments here. Let's tell you to do with the assignments to see how you follow through, start following through, just to see if you can follow some freaking instructions and get things that, and it is remarkable how many leaders start, just what you were saying, dig in their heels and resist doing the work.
Resist doing the work. Absolutely.
And they think that they have arrived. And I'm telling them, brother, you haven't even got to the train station yet, let alone you have not arrived. That's right. The truth of it is. And so there's this interesting notion here that I'm good at my biz, and therefore I should just be able to what? Step into my role. Now, you've seen that a lot. Give us some insight about, I think I should because I already can, therefore I'm already there. I'm already a leader.
I want to give you an example of this, Maikel, and it comes from a different aspect. Okay. Today's world, cut and paste, cut and paste world that we live in. And I'm talking specifically about my experience in recording in studios and where I got my experience. And a lot of my experience came from, I worked in Nashville as a studio musician for a while. And this is all back in the 80s when, we're talking about still 32 digital reel to reel. Okay. There's no Windows based recording at this point. It's all reel to reel and it's all real time. Okay. So in order to be a musician that you could record, you had to understand your instrument. You had to have the ability to understand how to play that and when to play it and what to play in order to make this music. Okay. Now I own a recording studio now, and this is something I do on the side, Maikel. And recording has all changed. It really has changed. It went from this, reel to reel, big reel to reel type recording. When they called it 32 digital or whatever, it was still a big reel to reel, big tape. Now it's all Windows based DAWs, which means if I have somebody come in and they record something, All they have to do is record maybe 4 bars. They had to play maybe 3 or 4 chords. And if they do that right, I can take that and cut and paste throughout the whole song. The problem is I get a lot of people coming to me that think, man, I can play a little bit of guitar, or I can play, or I can sing in the shower, or I can, I can sit down at the piano and I can play a little bit, but enough that they feel, man, I've got it. I've arrived. And just because you can cut and paste those 4 bars or whatever it may be and create a song out of that, or sing a couple lines and cut and paste that throughout the song as maybe the chorus or whatever, does not mean you've arrived. It does not mean you're a musician. It means you are learning how to record. You're learning how to play. It doesn't mean that you've arrived. That's the problem now. And I see this with young emerging leaders. It's everything now is cut and paste. Everything now is that Windows-based instant gratification. So no one wants to put in the time. They don't want to put in the time. They got the title. My gosh, I went to school. I got my degree. I'm an engineer, or I'm whatever. And I come out and now I got the title. I'm a manager. So they take manager and they substitute that with leader. That's not the case. And that results in people not taking the time, doing the due diligence, putting in the time necessary in their own personal development. Not waiting for someone else to do it for you.
Oh yeah, this is all on your own time stuff.
This is on your own we're talking about.
Yeah.
Your own woodshedding, okay? Your own woodshedding,
yeah.
your own practice, your own personal time. It takes too much time. I'm just going to cut and paste. It doesn't work like that.
I bet you people out there, as you're explaining that whole thing about playing a few bars and that whole thing, I bet a lot of people were brought to mind the movie La Bamba. Great flick, wonderful, wonderful story. In the beginning there, Richie is playing his guitar.
La Bamba. Okay, yeah.
Remember La Bamba?
Ricky
this guy watched him at some sort of party, some sort of gig, and said, I can do something with you. Come on, here's my card. Go to my studio. Yeah. And so he would be playing. No, you don't understand. You have to play it exactly the same every time. Every time. And it was driving the kid crazy because Richie Valens are crazy because they're used to just doing it all over the place.
Yeah.
And he had to learn the discipline to play it the same way every time so he could take those cuts, a little blip here, a little blip there. And then from that, he could actually put together a really great soundtrack, a really great song. Yes. That's that consistency. There it is. That's that discipline, that self-discipline to be able to walk into the studio and to deliver it in such a way that it really has some, a sense of holisticity. It holds together.
Yeah.
That's that whole deal. And so, anything else on that?
Yeah. I what you just said, I remember when I first got back there, walking in and thinking, man, I've arrived. I have arrived. I'm here in Nashville. I'm going to start recording. And you find out really fast that you have no clue what you're doing. But fortunately, I was in with a bunch of guys who did know what they were doing and did take me aside, said, no, man, listen to this. Don't listen to that. Try this. Don't do that. It's the same thing with leadership today, Maikel. It's the same thing with personal development and getting a coach, right? That's what coaches do. Don't do this. Listen to this. Don't listen to that. Play it this way. Don't do it that way. Because they take the time to see your potential and take that potential that you bring to the table and turn that into future performance.
It's really in your case, it's that ability to hear.
Yeah.
And that fine tuning of that ear that knows this sound is different than that sound. This sound really works a whole lot better, though a lot of people aren't going to notice it, but they'll feel it.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. If you can see it, what's going on, if you can hear it, if you can feel it, because you've been there. And so that's part of what this whole thing is in terms of what we're talking about. So what is it if you're serious about, and again, where are we getting these stats from? I mean, this is the stuff we're pulling out of the air. 95% of the CEOs out there at all levels of organizations are not great according to their own culture. So there's only about 5% of the CEOs out there that really seem to know what it is that they're doing, and the people that they're leading are saying that these are great CEOs. So there's a pretty good chance that you're out there, that you're pretty good chance that you're not part of the 5%, though you may be.
Yeah.
You're more like the 95%. So what's the difference that we've been talking about here? Let me quick story. Way back in the time, there was Franklin Quest, a company that did the day timer thing. They were big into the day timer, and they carried around a little notebook, and they give you training on it. They were all about managing your time. There was another company that came along a little later by Stephen Covey, the Covey Company, and their response to them was kind of like, Franklin Quest said, manage your time. Learn to manage your life, manage your time. And Covey's response to that, well, why manage your life when you could be leading your life? That's what their whole take was. So, a little bit of marketing. What they didn't realize is you need both sides. If you can't, again, manage yourself, why do you think you can manage a business? Why do you think you can manage a team? Why do you think you can manage a company if you can't manage yourself? So there were certain fundamentals that have to be in place so that you know who you are and how it is that you actually work. And a lot of it comes out of emotional intelligence. Number one, how do you learn? I'm going to ask you right now, how do you learn? Leaders, if you're listening right now, how do you learn? And I'm not talking about auditory, not talking about visual learners, tactile learners. That stuff, a lot of stuff is just kind of a little silly nonsense stuff. How do you actually learn? Could you write down on your piece of paper there, these are the steps that I go through to learn. These are the steps that I go through to grow. These are the steps that I go through to now create something different for my team. Can you do that? Do you know if that's really true? That's part of it. How do you actually work? What's your temperament? We talk a lot about leadership styles here. That's another way of saying here's your personality style. And oftentimes they're going to match up with your leadership style, your temperament, then your leadership. You really know what it is. You've probably taken a number of temperament kinds of assessments or surveys. How does that actually translate? In fact, I'll ask you this. What have you done with it? When you got back that 60 pages or so, what did you do with it? If you're like 99% of the people, the answer is nothing. Put it on the shelf and collect the dust. Now, Rich, what do? We give people several surveys, and then what do we do with that?
We unpack it for them. We sit down with them and help them understand it. So they're not left in the dark going, what the heck does this mean? And not only that, it's important to, when I say that we unpack it, people understand that we're trained to do that. We understand what we're telling you. That's the whole difference between maybe doing a self-assessment or having somebody in HR try to explain it to you. And no slam on HR. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that understand that. But for the most part, simply because someone gives you a self-assessment and you get 60 pages back doesn't mean you're going to understand it or they're going to be able to unpack it for you.
And once it's unpacked, then we take it to the next step.
Here's
what you do with it now. Here's what you actually start doing with it. There are just gems upon gems of stuff in a good survey, and a good assessment on your personality or your leadership. We suck out those gems. We start lining them up and say, okay, here's the things that it's saying for you to do. Here's the things that we're going to ask you to do so that it anchors it, so that it anchors who you are as a leader. So when the fear starts hammering away on you, you got that anchor and you're going to stand strong. Now, that's good for you. Why else would that be important for you to be able to know those anchors and we call them belief systems, performance out of your anchor, then belief systems. Why are those important as well to anchor? I'll give you an example here real quick. You tell me, because I know you've had a lot of experience doing this. Your ability to connect with your employees or the people on your team and to give them encouragement, to give them some guidance, to give them some insight when they're struggling with something, to be able to say, hey, let's take this in a different way. And, I believe that you can, and all that kind of stuff, that verbal stuff that you do as a leader, as a good manager. Why is that important that you know how to do that to build your team up? Give us some examples from your experience.
I'll tell you, that's an interesting question because, you can't be a coach, you can't be a mentor if you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, it goes back that if you can't amaze them with brilliance, baffle them with BS. Well, that doesn't work. The baffle them with BS doesn't work because they're going to pick up on that. It's important that you understand every single aspect of your business. Now, you may not be able to do it well. You may not be able to stand on the line with the people that do this day in and day out, but you can have a legitimate conversation with them about it. You can explain it to them, what the importance of what it is they're doing, instead of just kind of nonsense. And this starts, Maikel, with day one. Day one. Are you getting out there and learning your business? Are you getting out there and learning who the people are, what makes them tick? You know, who those are you making a presence in your business, in your organization? You know, you can't be a coach, you can't be a mentor in business, you can't be a leader by being AWOL in your office. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You can't be AWOL sitting behind behind a screen like this, if you will, if that's the only way you're going to lead your organization. When you understand the specifics of what it is that your company does, and you can talk intelligently to people about that, you can take in. And here's the other thing, Maikel, it's not just your employees, it's your customers. You bring your customer through on a tour of your organization, and you can't tell them what you do. You can't explain to them what it is. Oh, well, we're going to have this guy tell you. And that might work for a while if you're new, learning the ropes. But eventually, you've got to be able to talk intelligently to what it is you're doing and be able to teach people. And that all comes from that personal development. Are you going to put in the time?
Yeah, personal development is a big thing, because unless you know how to communicate to whoever it is, whether it's your employees, the managers, the customers, the people up above, C-level stuff, or if you're C-level stuff, that ability to communicate in ways that are affirming, that instill a sense of belief, of optimism, a sense of opportunity, a sense of enthusiasm about the opportunity. Unless you can communicate that and do that, as you talked about on a call that we are on today, one-on-one. It's a one-on-one experience. You have to be able to do that one-on-one. If you don't know how to do it with yourself, to encourage yourself, to build yourself up in terms of getting the job done, to really do the work, not like, I'm a great person, blah, 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 but I'm a great person to help other people. I can go in and I can see what they need. I got the talents, I got the skills, I got the experience, and then genuinely go in and engage them so that, and how do you know? How do you know if you're really helping them? It's a very simple thing. If they feel better after their interaction with you, and then over time, they seem to be better and better in how they feel about themselves, about being there in where they are, in the workplace, and about their performance. Those three things start to happen if you're doing that ongoingly. If they're feeling discouraged, if they lack motivation, they're feeling down, if they're feeling just listless or lack of focus, and you don't know how to go in there and change that, that's not necessarily all their fault. There may be some problems that they have. Your ability to go in as a leader, start shaking that up, to give them the opportunity to step it up, is going to be absolutely vital. And if you don't know how to get yourself to step it up, you don't have the skill to help others.
Yeah. There are going to be times you're going to fail as a leader. It's inevitable. Failure is part of the learning process. But simply failing, if you will, or not taking the time to develop yourself, those leadership abilities, where you're gonna fail for sure. That's your fault. That's on your shoulders. And that's something that's going to be very difficult to come back from, not only from a personal standpoint, but it can also be a career killer as well. You throw yourself into a position, or you get put into a position where those skills are essential, and suddenly you find out you don't have the chops, if you will, to do this. Now comes the imposter syndrome. Now comes the overconfidence effect. Now comes the blame game. Now comes everything else, trying to save your own skin, where you could have done this to begin with and taken the time, the due diligence. And it doesn't come overnight, folks. It doesn't come overnight.
We've talked to a number of
No
candidates
shortcut.
lately. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say there is no shortcut.
No.
There simply is not a shortcut.
We've talked to a number of leaders, interviewing them recently about doing, working with us, some leadership development, some executive coaching. And there's a series of questions that we've asked them, and none of them, not any one of them, have answered yes to these questions.
Right.
They've said, well, yeah, I know about it. I've heard about them before. I've asked them, do you have a vision statement for yourself? No. Have you written down your values? No. Do you have them in affirmation? No. How about your principle? No, I know I should do that. Okay. All right. Do you have goals? Are your goals written? Oh, I got them in my head. I'll bet you every one of the leaders that are watching here today, you probably fit into that category. You heard about it or heard something about it, but you probably haven't actually done it. Right. And you probably haven't habitualized yourself to those again by going over them again and again and again. These are all basic self-management tools for you to manage and motivate yourself. Let me ask you this question. At the end of each day, do you go through what it is that you've done that day, what it is you got done? At the end of that day, then do you write down a summation of, okay, here's what I got done, celebrate, this is great work, got done this today, me and my team, blah, 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 sense of, accomplishment. Then you write down, okay, here's what I didn't get done. These are my carryovers, and here's what I expect to do, so that you've written it down, not just in your head, but it's actually written down so that your brain can percolate it on over that. And then when you get up in the morning, you're already in the mode of setting out your goals, your agenda for the day in writing. Now, I know you got some leadership, you got some meetings in there and some phone calls. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
That stuff's already pre-programmed, right? I'm talking about actually building a plan for the day. How many of you actually do that? I'll bet you, based upon our experience, it's a very, very small percentage. And yet, what do you think, Rich? Is that or is that not the heart of your ability to lead others, that you do these things, you've habitualized these things in the management and motivation of yourself?
What you mentioned a couple things, Maikel, that have you done these vision, your mission, your goals? Every one of these, if you have done these, you're going to understand they're life-changing. They're life-changing. If you take the time to really put in what it is your vision is, you take the time to really write down your why. Why do I get up in the morning? What's my purpose in life? What are my goals? How do I get to those goals? Those things are life-changing. They truly are. And it's a phenomenal thing when you get done with those. But again, I think, Maikel, this is such an important thing you talked about. How many people out there can tell us or have been able to tell us, yes, I've done this. But no, they can tell you, I've got the title. I've got, I can do this, I can do that. But do you really understand what it is you're doing and why you're doing it?
Yeah. And then it leads to a very interesting place. It's really interesting. And that is, well, I'd write down my agenda for the day, or I'd write down my goals, but something always happens. I can't get to it. I get distracted and da-da-da. So I don't know, I kind of have them in my mind about what it is I'm do, but I really don't ever get to them and actually write them down and then lay out a plan of action for myself.
Yeah.
What's that called? Why don't they do that?
It is procrastination.
Which is driven by fear.
Fear.
It is fear-driven behavior. The reason you don't write down your goals and write down your plans of action is because you're not positively motivated. You're not motivated by your vision, your mission, your values, your principles, your sense of who it is that you are. You're not motivated in a positive way. What's really happening is you're holding yourself back out of a fear. Your avoidance, it's avoidance strategies that you're actually using. So instead of, pedal to the metal, let's go, let's get things worked out, let's get these things done. It's a constant back and forth. And oftentimes you're stepping on the gas brake and the gas at the same time as the brake. That's what you're doing. And that creates this, this tension inside of you. You're going nowhere, but man, you're burning up fuel and you're driving yourself crazy. That's the next step. How do you get past your fears? The self-limiting beliefs that you have about yourself are the greatest inhibitors to your performance and your success and your team's and company's success. Let me say that again, just to make sure you get that. Your fears, not everybody else's fears, your doubts, your anxieties are the greatest inhibitors to your success, your team's success, your company's success, your client's success, everybody's success that you touch. It's all wrapped around you because you don't know how to get past them. And instead of having a solid basis from which you work to move through those fears, procrastination, distraction, whatever those things are, fear of abandonment, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of criticism, all that jazz, you don't know how to get through all that. You, by definition, are limiting your success for everybody.
You know, Maikel, I gotta add something here, and I'm going to let you unpack something, if you will, because we don't just give lip service to what we're talking about. Education is nonstop, continual education, sharpening that saw, everything about that, reading books and putting those things to practice is a nonstop exercise. Recently, you just went through an exercise with me, coaching me on something, on limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Tell, you know, from your viewpoint, tell our listeners how that went, because that was a phenomenal learning experience. But I'm going to let you, as the teacher, as the coach, unpack that for, you know, tell everybody how I went about that.
Well, the exercise was really about resiliency. There's a series of exercises we take lead people in leaderships through just to kind of test where they are, just to see how they're doing. There's a series of these, just again, it's kind of that whole thing of, you know, training to educate, learn, training to train. It's kind of like that stuff. And we got this particular one called resiliency. And it's that ability to bounce back. What is your ability? Do you have a strategy for bouncing back? It's kind of like, what is your strategy to learn? So we do a lot of strategy stuff about how you do things. And so we said, okay, here's the whole thing about that, and here's how it works. Let's take a look at what's a limiting belief that you have, Rich, about, you know, so we can take a look at in terms of the paradigm of resiliency. You really struggled with that.
I did.
It was like, well, I don't know if I have any. Maybe I do. I'm not sure. And this is something that, you know, I applaud Rich for sticking with and working through. I mean, it took him maybe 3 weeks or so to kind of really work that through and to kind of figure that out and get that honed in on. But what was amazing about that is once you got it figured out and you really got that specific focus about something, you really say, okay, I think this really is it. And it seems like it's resonating. I noticed shortly after that, a whole bunch of stuff just started coming out.
Oh yeah,
You got that identified. All this stuff started opening up. Like, oh well, this has to do with that. Da 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 da. And that's a big breakthrough, and that's what we're looking for in training leaders. It's not just about the information. What we're looking for is how to break through those barriers that you have, where you think you know something when maybe you really don't, or you think that this is the only thing that's possible when there's really much more. It's the breakthroughs. It's not just the breakthroughs. It's training you on how to create your own breakthroughs again and again and again and again through the tools and the training that we give you. Because we're not going to be hitched to the, you know, at the hip for the rest of our lives. You know, at some point we're going to say, you've got enough tools now, go out and make it happen. You know what to do because you had the training. You worked with us. We've done the, you know, the one-on-ones. We've done the discussions about the business and about you and all sorts of things. At some point, you will have a new toolbox with which you will go out and attack it. So Rich had this great breakthrough. He had to work it through. What was it like for you on your end, Rich?
It was frustrating. It was difficult. It was humbling. You know what? It was something that it's one of those things is that as we learn about ourselves, and one of the things we teach about is being vulnerable, being humble, having humility. Yeah. And when you really find out, you really do the work, and that's the key. When you do the work, not just pencil whip, which I think initially I did, going through this thinking I got this covered, and then you find out that you don't, and it opens up a whole myriad of other issues that, wow, that really is slowing me down, isn't it? that it's again, each one of these steps is a change for the better for myself. It can be a change for the better for you, for the people you work with, but it takes work, and it takes the and it's not easy. It's not easy looking inside yourself and admitting yeah, I do have that. Gosh dang it, I didn't, I wasn't going to admit to that because I didn't think I had that issue going, but gosh dang it, I do. And what am I going to do about it? Well, that's the trick. That's the trick. And so when we talk about this, about the stuff, this is stuff that we practice what we preach. And I know, Maikel, you are working with people all the time in different groups and stuff like that. And so this isn't something we're just preaching. We do this. And that's why we're telling you how important it is to make sure you continue on your personal development. And if you haven't started, start now. Start now.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've noticed, and you will find when you actually go through this, is that breakthrough has its own energy. And then with that, there's a momentum. There's a whole momentum that starts flowing out. And to be honest with you, I'm still seeing that momentum operating in your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's still going. It's still going, but that's the whole thing. It's about getting that flywheel going. Once you get that flywheel going, it takes on a momentum of its own, and you can't, then the other side of that is you have to make an effort to stop that. And why would you do that? Once you get scared again. No, let's go with it. Go with it.
Yeah, and that's why. And it's easy to do. You get scared again, but then if you got the tools, you'll keep moving yourself out of the fear.
Yeah.
Keep marching forward. That's the whole thing. That's what the fear of success is. Gosh, I was successful. But was I just lucky?
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this thing up.
Okay. Well, again, and I got to tell you, we got a great comment from Cameron Bodley while we were doing this. I just want to read this real quick. And it said, part of our employee handbook with what we're talking about, the development, but I definitely need to update and inform our employees better. Of them, the points in the employee handbook. So good points nonetheless. Doesn't help anyone if it's just in a folder somewhere. Absolutely. If you have those learning tools and those tools sitting there, get them out there. Great comment, Cameron. I appreciate that. We've worked with Cameron before. So, all right. Once again, at the end of another episode of Mainline Executive Coaching ACT. And if you want to know more about what we're talking about today, or find out who it is that you can get your personal development started, and honestly, the best way to do that is with a coach. It truly is. Can guide you in that right direction. And so you're not floundering, you're not, throwing a dart at the dartboard hoping it's going to stick in the right, spot out there. But we can help you hit that bullseye, help you get on with your development. So Executive Leaders Act, ILEC.com. And there's a contact button on there. There's also information about coaches, information about what it is we do, testimonials, and a lot of good stuff. So look us up. And shout out, Maikel, who are we shouting out to today?
Well, let's take a look at, let's see, I've got some folks up here. People in San Francisco, California, one of my favorite cities. Love going there. Bay, the bridge, the whole thing. My wife grew up in the Oakland Bay area. I think it was Oakland Hills. I think she actually called. She went to high school with Tom Hanks. I think she was a little ahead of him. Same high school. Yeah, really? Tom Hanks. That's right. So shout out to you good people out there in San Francisco and Oakland as well.
And one other thing, we've got some new listeners in the Philippines.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We've got some new listeners in the Philippines that have been really diligent the last little while in downloading our episodes. So thank you very much. And we'd love to hear from you as well.
Any and all.
Okay. So again, we are at the end of this, and we look forward to seeing you again next time and appreciate all your support. So until then, take care of each other and be safe. We'll see you soon.
All the best.
Bye-bye.